So good evening, everyone. My name is Sheila Green, and welcome to Parkside Business and Community and Partnerships May 26th community meeting. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we host these meetings once a month to give people the opportunity to learn, to explore, to express, and to do things that are necessary in order for our communities to grow. This evening, we are going to be discussing a very, very, very touchy topic, but we're going to do it in all the grace and all of the dignity that we have as the people that we are, to have our guests educate on some of these various facets of racism, as well as to instruct us on where we should be going as a people, as a country, as a state, and a community. So I normally open with prayer, but tonight I want to do something a little different. It'll be in the form of prayer, but it'll also be in the wake of the anniversary of an actually witnessed murder that we went through 1 year ago in this time period. So we'll start. Great universal parents, let me thank you first for everything that you have done for all of those who have joined us today and all of those that are joining. We ask that those that are in commute, that they have safe passage wherever they may be going. We pray that there are no conflicts in their life going, coming, or even into the years and days to come. We want to thank you for opening our eyes, allowing us to see something that maybe we were not paying attention to within the last year or so. The first part of it was life. And the second part of it was the acknowledgement of what we know about life. I want to thank you now for the fact that the bodies and the humans that you've given us tonight will be those that will actually be able to express some of the things that we've all thought, some of the things that we've never thought that we would have to experience. And we want to make sure that all of those that are listening have an open ear. This is not a conversation to beat up anyone, to beat down anyone, to put anybody in a position that says that it's your fault in any shape, form, or fashion. We're asking that you open our hearts and minds so that we can understand what this term really means, why it's here, why it has affected us, and what are we going to do going forward. So we thank you for everything that's about to happen, and we pray for your mercies in this evening. We pray for the families that have lost in the last year and in this year past, and this year thus far. We pray for the people who are still going through this pandemic. We pray for all of those that have vaccinated and for those that are still thinking about getting it done. So we're looking at what you have done and what you will do, and thank you for all of those things as we open our meeting to start our discussion about racism. Amen. So, good evening, everyone. Tonight's topic is going to be about racism. And racism is a very difficult topic. We are in need to talk about it because it's a year after the senseless witness murder of a man by a police officer who did not understand the whole serve and protect rule. So tonight we're going to get right into it. We're not going to do anything outside of the normal with the exceptions of this. Questions will be in the chat. Any questions that you have to ask any of the guests will be in the chat. Anything for Ronsha for Camden Parents Union, Michelle for Camden Business Association, for Samir for Superior Arts, for Commissioner Young for political racism, and for Captain Coley, you will put those in the chat and we will address them as fast as we can and try to answer as many as possible. Okay? Please be patient. We will not tolerate any disrespect in this meeting at all. I have control over this meeting to shut it down if necessary, which I do not want to do because this is such an important topic. So if we could all just be the adults that we are, and let's talk about the things that we should talk about within the subject matter. I think we can get through this next hour or so and come out with more knowledge than we came in with. Okay, so if you have any questions, please raise your hand while we're in the process of actually talking to the guests. If you have any questions for the guests directly afterwards, if it's not in the chat and you want to ask a very short question, this is possibly allowable, but I cannot have 2, 3, 4, 5 minute questions and answers because we don't have a lot of time. This will be the first of maybe a whole nother series to come, because we're probably going to do this again in the fall of the same year, just to address where we have come from in the year past and where we're going to from this moment going forward. This is not the perfect situation, but it is what we're doing at this moment. So I appreciate your time. And if there's any questions or anything that you want to send to me directly, you can send them to my voicemail at Sheila Green, which is 856-964-0440, extension 13. You can just ask me a question or give me a statement or tell me something that's going on, and I'll respond to you as soon as I possibly can. So tonight I'd like to welcome, to start off, I know that one of the most important things that racism has taught us is to be educated. Education is the foundation on what we know, what we don't know, how we can read this forum, how we can do the Zoom, how we can do everything that we're about to do, because we have been educated to do just that. So I'd like to bring on tonight a person who is in the trenches, has been in the trenches, and they just did a Zoom about a week ago for the Journey for Justice Foundation coordinates that they brought to our attention, brought to the attention about the racial disparities. So Ms. Ransha Dickerson, are you ready?
Off of mute. I am ready now.
Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you.
You are always that breath of fresh air and that door opening, that is, straight from the heart. And I will not take any credit for it. I don't care what we say. I just want you to know that, your expertise in the fields that you stand in, and you stand in a lot of fields, is very well appreciated here. So can you open us up with the whole perception and indications and everything else where educational racism is concerned?
Sure. First of all, I'd like to thank you, Mom. It's such an honor to be able to share platforms with your mother. I don't know if everyone else has that honor to be able to do things with your mom and make changes, but it's always an honor. I look at it as an opportunity for us to show that we are growing as a family, but also as a community. I want to thank PBCIP for always inviting us to be a part as their education wing for Camden's Parent Union. Thank all the guests that are on tonight and those who will watch this later as a conversation piece to really deal with this issue. The subject is racism. Brief background on me. I'm a mother of 6 children. Who all come through the Camden City School District, and I'm also alumni of Camden City Public Schools. Also, I have 20 plus years experience as a parent in the district, but also my years of being a student in the district. So it comes from a really sacred place, but also a well-informed place of things I've seen as a parent and as a student, then also as a community organizer for education in Camden City. I live here, and yeah, this is a part of the conversation. So I'm on tonight just to talk about 3 areas. Education justice is racial justice. We got to make sure that we're very clear about that. There's a rich history of the culture and the footprint of racism that has been in Black education, or I should say BIPOC education, Black, Indigenous, people of color education for decades. What's important to say is that what happened is that we as Black people first were looking for a place that we can just call our own. Place that we wanted to build our foundational principles on, educate our children, build our businesses, do all the things that any community would want to do for ourselves. But there was this ongoing fight of racism that continued through, as long as time can tell. I can't remember when racism did not raise its ugly face, and when it comes down to the amenities, or we say the quality of life things we need to survive. So we know things like Jim Crow. That's a part of our history, right? Good, bad, or indifferent, we know Jim Crow. We know things like lynchings. That's a part of our history, right? We know things like Plessy versus Ferguson. We know things like Brown v. Board. And these things are not like 100 years old. They're like 1954 years old. Like some people on this call were born in 1954 and are still alive, and they were the children of these issues. Racism, it's not that America is horrible at educating. America is just does really well with separating and creating spaces where one race is more superior than the other. So in many Black communities, many communities that were trying to flourish at a time, when you think about Tulsa, Oklahoma, and all the places that were flourishing as Black folks coming right off of slavery, coming right off of a second generational slavery attempt, these folks were trying to build themselves up. We talk about the bootstrap conversation, build themselves up from bootstraps, own schools, schools that were not state-of-the-art schools. They were schools that looked like, you know, little outback houses, and they were educated in one room from maybe K through 12 in one room. Black teacher from the community that was teaching the children, teaching the community, and that teacher lived in that community, right? These things were in the fabric of who we were as Black people. And then it became a conversation around, why is it that our children are not receiving the same equal education, right? Why are we not receiving the same equity that other schools around us are receiving? In the South, you saw the unfairness of the school buildings, of the textbooks, of the racial divide. Across the North, you saw the same exact thing. You saw it all over the country. So there was a fight, and credit to the NAACP, to fight to kind of build that gap and to integrate. Now, many people on this call may say integration was the death of us as Black people. It's a discussion, right? It could be a discussion. However, the truth is that Black people never begged to be in white schools. We just said we should be afforded the opportunities that everyone's been afforded. We should be afforded the opportunity for us to be able to be educated properly in the dynamics that we are. We have gifted children. We have children who are far more advanced than any other children. Our children can go toe to toe with some of their white counterparts. And I'm saying this, it may feel weird to say white and Black as a color, and may make folks feel like, you know, this is race baiting and race talking, but it's the history of who we are. It's the history of what we've been through. So specific to Camden, we may think that Camden is just a small city that doesn't feel the remnants of what nationally is going on with the integration of schools, the lack of education support, the lack of equity, the lack of resource, the lack of access. It's here. It's totally here. Growing up in Camden, my track was John Greenleaf Whittier, Hatch Middle School, Camden High School. That was my track. That's the track that I went on. I was a public school kid. I remember many of my teachers at that time did live in the city. A lot of the police officers that in that time lived in the city. There were so many rich programs for the Black and brown community that we grew up in. That was back in, you know, the early 80s into the 90s. And that was the case. But now as a parent, looking at the lens of education in Camden, it has changed dramatically. It's changed with the idea of race to the top. It's changed with legislators thinking that the ability to afford a proper education or state-of-the-art education to change legislation so it can hit communities that we live in, to make people feel like this is the way we should educate our children. Education is not a one-size-fits-all. Education has never been a one-size-fits-all. And what we have to understand is that America has guided us into believe that certain racial behaviors, certain ways to identify education across the country is what fits for every community, and it doesn't. Honestly, I'm sorry, y'all, background, I'm in the city. It's my
soundtrack. Yeah, we live in the same neighborhood, so yeah.
Praying all is well, but it's the soundtrack of the city. So I'll wrap it up in a second. So to make things clear, education is not a one-size-fits-all, and in Kansas City specifically, we've lost a lot. We lost some things that made us be a Black and brown led educational system. We lost access to a lot of our teachers of color that are not in the classroom. We lost access to have certain things that we need, like certain local controls and things we need to build on and keeping folks accountable. But what's happening, more importantly, when it comes down to racism and the education justice that we're looking for, is that the same ugly face that raised up for George Floyd, the same ugly face that raised up for Breonna Taylor, the same ugly face that raised up for Trayvon Martin, and we can keep going, Freddie Gray and all the names that go on, that same face that raised up there also are some of those people exist in the classrooms that teach our children. And you got to sit on that and think about that. I don't know if you all really did some research on how many teachers were Trump supporters at the time, but these were the same teachers that were teaching our children in school. So we don't start doing things on our own. Like, what have we done? We have been very clear of demanding that we get more teachers of color. And not saying that white teachers cannot teach, they cannot be allies in this educational fight. But it also is different when you see a teacher that looks like you, that's not just in the building doing janitorial work or security work, but really teaching and molding the minds of children. It inspires education to go further. It was a survey that said that a percentage of children who were taught by black or brown educators went on to higher education because they actually had an opportunity to see someone who looks like them in front of them and educating them, and can also identify to the things that they see every day in their life. So for Camas specifically, what we've done is demanded more teachers of color. We've demanded, local control so we can be able to hold folks accountable. And we've demanded things like culturally relevant education. In a time of COVID, we watch our children shift from being able to be in schools. And I want to be clear, still under-resourced schools, still schools that need work rooms, still schools that need to be identified as, we need to pour some attention and love on some of these schools that are 100 plus years old. Doesn't mean to close, it just means to pour love on them and make sure they get what they need, right? And with that happening, a lot of our children in the pandemic has had a hard time adjusting to virtual learning. I've watched depression happen. I watched a disattachment happen. I watched all of things happen because the image of virtual learning still came from a compass of we're still in the classroom versus it being broaden the horizon on teaching children the way we teach virtually. We're not teaching you to curriculum or benchmarks or assessment. We're teaching you to be able to let where you are right now become your world. The other side of that is that our children also are in the middle of, I want to go back because I'm tired of being in this situation of being home, being on a computer, not seeing my friends, going through the motions of, of losing people, watching people die because they had COVID, watch all these things happen. And then on top of that, having to deal with seeing racist things happen on television or right in my neighborhood or right a neighborhood over from me. I'm not sure what that one is either, but a neighborhood over from me and have to cope with that, right? That level of pain that you cannot identify what it is, that level of you didn't get closure is a part of the education and racial justice that we're talking about. So where we are now, we're in a place where we believe as Camden Parent Union and as a part of this conversation is that we have to identify racism. We have to identify sensitivity training for teachers who don't live in the city or are a part of Camden's background. We have to start demanding these things and have a open conversation about what racism is and what racism is not. The next part that I just want to say is that looking at the quality of life things that we need going now. Looking at the quality of life things that we need in our community. I'm talking about environmental justice, all the things we're on here talking about, safety, education, food, we call food apartheid, talking about, the healthcare issues, all the things we're talking about. And I'm a doula also talking about, just making sure that Black women and Black children are not dying in the emergency rooms or in labor and delivery. These are things in our communities that are coming up on our radar more often than not, and it's needed for us to have a broader platform where we are now informing the ground and our legislators on what we believe is needed for our communities. Now, the last piece I'll say, and I'll close out here because I want to give every guest their time, is that there's federal money coming into Camden. There's a lot of money coming into Camden, and according to my research and my resources, is saying that a lot of this federal money needs to have community voice in order for it to be deployed to the city. This is not, it was thought out well, where it's not a situation where the powers that be or those who are elected in office get to make a decision for the people on the ground. It requires a marriage of what does the community want, Is the community okay with us spending the money this way? And also, does this work overall for what our vision is for our communities and for our city? That's a real thing. It's legislation, it's there. And if we don't start to ask these questions about our education, our environment, our housing, our safety, things like that, the money could be put in wrong areas. So what we need to do at this point, right now, at this point, is look at the situation as we're demanding equity in all quality of life areas. We know that education deserves a lot of equity. It's getting funding from two different sources. State is giving funding, federal government's giving funding, local government's giving funding, but it needs to have a level of equity and to be able to look at it from a broader perspective of, are we going back to what we consider our normal, or are we transforming to give the community what the community actually needs? When's the last time we asked a parent, a mother of multiple children who are going to multiple schools, what is it that you need? That right there is a way for us to start to stomp at and knock down the racist aesthetics that are in our schools. We don't give an opportunity for parents to really speak openly about the things they dream big about for their children. Every child doesn't wish for their child to be a basketball star. They don't. Every child doesn't wish for their child to go and put it to a, can be able to hear it. Can the project start through people come into a space and ask 3 questions around racism, like, how has racism affected you? What other things would you like to see happen in your community? And then get testimony from these parents about what they've been going through. Not a 3-minute time frame, not a, I'm sorry, Ms. Dickerson, your time is up time frame, giving people an opportunity to talk, because if we don't start having these open conversations about what racism is, what injustice is, what these things are, we are doing our young folks a disservice. So we'll be doing these series of listening projects coming up in the month of June. Stay tuned for that. We'll share with PBCIP and share them abroad through the city of Camden. But racism is the nucleus of a lot of the conversation that we need to have across the city. And there is reverse racism. There's institutional racism. There's systematic racism. There's so many levels of racism that we don't approach and we don't deal with because we are so concerned about the bottom line of, this is all a way to fight for what we believe is best, but we're not having the proper conversations. So that's the next step that we're doing, where we have been identifying what we know is true. We know the rich history of racism in our communities and in the cultural fabrics of America. We have been demanding what we need in our city for Camden City, of how we can attack racism and the things that stem from racism. And then we're doing things to make sure we are getting the information from the ground, from the parents, from the community, from the students, to make sure that we are doing it in the favor of what we like to see. So that's all I really have. I just wanted to kind of lay that out and show you the 3 areas that we're in. Didn't want to do a fancy PowerPoint, but just wanted to have an open discussion about where we are, and that I want to remind you that Brown v. Board was only in 1954, and we're still suffering from the remnants of Brown v. Board. So if anybody has any questions, I'll stay on for a few minutes, and I'll put my email in the chat, and you can join us. You can go to Camden's Parent Union Facebook page and website. I'll put that in the chat also, and see some of the things that we have fought for, we won, and things we're dreaming to win in the city of Camden and also in the state of New Jersey. You on mute, mama. You're still on mute. You're on mute. Nope, not yet. I don't know who else is on from PBCIP, Bridget or Miosha.
Hit your mute button. Hit your space bar button.
Space bar button? Okay, wait, there we go. Hey, there we go. Genius, thank you. I don't know what happened. Everything was like frozen. I couldn't move. Okay, well, we're back to normal. Okay, good. Think I'm here. Just make sure you can hear me anyway. Good. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Rasha, thank you so much. That was like, the eye opener that we definitely need. We just have to, actually start utilizing some of the things from the past. We learned a lot in the past from our ancestors, our great grandmothers, our grandmothers, our mothers, that unifying ourselves as a family when it comes down to the education of our children and our young people is highly important if all of us do it together. If we don't do it together, it's always going to be a gap somewhere. So we can't have the ones that just have children be the ones that's the ones to have to deal with children. We all have to be in it together. I hate saying it. I'm tired of saying it, but a village is what it takes to raise everything, especially children. So we're going to go on from there. I hope that there's no more glitches because my screen is kind of like frozen and I'm trying to figure out what is going on here. Hold on. I was told to hit my space bar. All right, it's a good thing. Let me try that. And I'm still kind of frozen here. So anyway, I'm going to introduce Nichelle. Nichelle, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Good, thank you very much. As I fight with this technology and try to get it out, thanking Rasha for everything. And we will be calling you on CCPD. I'm sorry, for CPU on a later date for some more information coming up in September so we can find out where we are with our children, what's going on with the school system, etc. Now I would like to introduce Vice President of the Camden Business Association right here in our city, Michelle Pace, who is a wealth of knowledge. I have been talking to this young lady off and on for a few weeks now, and I cannot say that, when you hear her, she's not what you would not expect what you see. She's the other side of the other side. But what she brings is everything that we need to know and how it should be done and what we should be doing. So I would like to introduce to some and present to others Ms. Michelle Pace, Vice President of Camden Business Association on Economic Racism.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sheila, for that lovely introduction. And thank you, PBCIP. You have always been wonderful partners to the CBA as well as the other guest speakers here today. Very happy and honored to be here with you all. Just real quick, I've been the vice president of the association for about 3 years now. My family is from Camden. I went to Whittier School, those types of things. We still have our house there, which my uncle and my cousin have taken over, and we're looking to buy the lot next door to expand that. But a lot of Camden roots, and I have a lot of family all over that city. But I'm very happy to be here today. Obviously, I want to talk about economic racism and economic injustice. One thing we need to realize is just touching upon the history. The way we came to this country was the ultimate economic injustice. We were bought and sold and commoditized from the inception of us being in America. So the history for our economic injustice and all the injustices is just weaved within the fabric of this country so deeply that we are essentially ripping it out thread by thread by thread right now. And it is a very big and monumental task that we've been fighting for and that we have in front of us, even on a year later after George Floyd and more people are more aware of our plight here in this country around the world. Everything from Black Wall Street to 40 acres and a mule. And speaking of education, I don't think most people knew that 40 acres and a mule only had to deal with South Carolina and the surrounding areas in that region. It was not for the whole country. It was only for the Blacks back then in that region. I have the privilege of having my family from that region. So we actually have, and my great grandfather was a sharecropper. So we actually have our 50 acres split between my grandparents and my grandmother and all her siblings that then has passed down to the rest of us. So it is very entrenched for us when it comes to our economic justice. And let me just give you guys some of the numbers, and I had to write them down because there's just too many. So in New Jersey, the median net worth of a white family is more than $309,000. And this was as of a couple years ago. It's $7,020 for the Latino family and $5,900 for the Black family. So there's $304,000 of net worth ahead of every family. And these are some of the things that were taken from us after Reconstruction. Things like redlining, things like banking discrimination, things like gerrymandering to take away our voices. We had Black politicians in the 1800s making some of these decisions about the economics of us. They got rid of them. It was a deal they made to keep power. But we had politicians early on in the history of this country that a lot of people don't know that history. And they were some awesome politicians. Another thing to note is that for that wealth gap, it would take 228 years for us to reach that, to close that wealth gap in New Jersey, and 84 years for our Latino brothers and sisters, just to have what a white family has today. And then if you get down to the women, nationally, single women have a median net worth of $3,200, and that's only $200 for single Black women and $100 for our single Latino women. So the numbers don't lie, as you know, the sports pundits always tell you. They don't lie. We are in a serious hole, and there has to be a sense of urgency when it comes to our money. Because when we get our money right, that helps us get a lot of our other issues, whether it be education, political, environmental. That helps us attack those other issues with more power if we start really focusing on our money. And Dr. Martin Luther King talked about that. He talked about it a lot. Some of the things we really need are pathways to housing, land ownership, business ownership. Those things will help generate more wealth back into our communities. When we don't have ownership, it just exacerbates the gap that we have, you know. So we have generations. You look at places like Willingboro, where there was a vibrant Black culture of Black homeowners, and that has gone away. That has gone away. The rest of the generations either did not keep up the homes or they decided to rent, and it's been tough. We've made some strides, you know, in some areas, but it hasn't even made a dent in what we really need to do. So housing and land ownership, as well as better banking. There's tons of racism in banking, and there's plenty of statistics out there that everybody can go and look up on their own time. But just the fact that we're left out of the banking process when we're looking for mortgages, or our houses, because of real estate racism, our houses are being underappraised. That takes hundreds of thousands of dollars from any one family. Just on an appraisal, they're killing our economic wealth. Just on an appraisal. You read stories nowadays where people are taking the pictures off the wall and having their white neighbor or white friend come there for their appraisal. And then they get another 40, 50 grand on their appraisal. That's been happening over and over and over and over again. So some of you who are homeowners, you need to think about how much equity you lost. How many dollars has your family lost from some of the homes that you own in your family, and how those appraisals have gone. And businesses, obviously that is the lane that I play in, but our businesses, you see what happened in Tulsa. Anytime we had a vibrant business community, it was literally burned to the ground or taken from us. Anytime we started to progress, it was taken back from us, because we can't have too much. We have been commoditized. You can use our talent. You can use our inventions. You can use all the assets of our culture and community, but it is never paid for in full. They have constantly gotten a discount in every level and every system in this country, or we have not been compensated at all for the sweat, blood, equity, ingenuity, everything that we've put into America, into our cities, and into our various states. So that's another issue. So with the business piece, we need startup capital. We need better banking so we can get startup capital. We need more grants. We don't need more loans. We need more people and more banks and more of these organizations that want to give us $1,000 for a basketball court, $100,000 for a basketball court. How about $100,000 in business startup grants? That's what we need. We don't need any more basketball courts. We don't need any more book bags. Our parents would like to be able to buy their own book bags and have job creation. But there is no job creation without the small and minority businesses. The small and minority businesses in New Jersey make half the jobs. Half the jobs come from us. I'm one of those business owners with a business in Camden. So 50% of the jobs come from us. Almost 58, 59% just in our county alone come from small businesses. And then small micro businesses, if you have less than 20 employees in the state of New Jersey, they're making almost 70,000 jobs a year of the small, homegrown mom and pop businesses. And we're not investing in those. When it comes to procurement and opportunity and getting contracts, whether it be public sector or private sector, there's so many hurdles there. What they have called supplier diversity and trying to work with more BIPOC businesses. They've tried to pick up steam with this. And when I say they, I mean the powers that be at the various organizations, companies, officials, but it's falling flat right now. It's falling flat. A lot of our supplier diversity programs kind of treat Black businesses as if we're remedial. And a Black business does not mean we're remedial. We don't always need the training. Some of us do. Some of us may need a little bit of help, but what we really need is contracts, is what we need. We don't, if we had the contracts, if we had the means, we would have the money to get a business coach on our own and do those types of things that some of these other businesses do. We don't have the equity. We usually have way less startup capital than our white counterparts to start a business. A lot of times they're buying homes with gifts from their parents and their family, and we don't always have the means to do that for our children. And that brings me to, that's why I tell people all the time, it is really imperative for our community to kind of break that cycle of always wanting to put our kids out when they're 18, because we need to provide a leg up for them. If they can be on our health insurance till they're 25, we need to use all 25 of those years to get them ready for the world. We should not be strapping them in their late teens and early 20s to put that kind of burden of them, because that burden's coming anyway. They already have a lot of hurdles to go through. So when it comes to economics, again, we need to think about how we set our children up to go out into the world as well, and how soon we do it, because that can also be detrimental to the economics of our community. And going back to the business inclusion and the supplier diversity, our systems, we always put in laws and programs, but then they're not executed. If we're not executing on some of these things, what they like to call set-asides, which I vehemently oppose that name, because a set-aside means crumbs. It has to be more business inclusion. These systems are set up to be very cumbersome. They don't let us easily take part in the process, which is very difficult. There's a lot of unnecessary red tape. A lot of these procurement systems are antiquated, and it has a direct impact on how good a company can work with diverse businesses. The better a company's procurement process and technology and systems, the better and the higher average they have of utilizing diverse suppliers and business. So it's very key as we look at programs and policies that we keep innovation and technology at the center of that. because the innovation and technology can also be the great equalizer for us, because a lot of it has to do with access. And technology is something the majority of us do have access to. There are some gaps there as well, but most people do have a phone. So when we start increasing our access into some of these programs, into some of these systems, it's important that we recognize that when we're looking for solutions. Another thing to note, and I don't want to go on because I could go on about this for hours. Another thing to note is the, impending cannabis industry. Come on. That was built on literally our blood, sweat, tears, and ashes. Prohibition only started because, once again, they wanted to target and control our community, both Black and brown folks. So Prohibition came about between the plastics companies, the prison industrial complex, the tobacco companies, and the pharmaceutical companies, did their little coalition to lobby against not just cannabis, but hemp. So we've lost a lot of ground, and that goes into the environmental justice that you're going to hear about, because could you imagine how much plastic would be on our planet if hemp was the packaging material it used to be when we first were using it in the first place? So that's a problem in itself. And these companies that are starting to open businesses in the cannabis industry have the audacity not to even hire Black and brown people, let alone let them open businesses or make the cost of entry affordable or provide grants and technical assistance. We're dealing with this in New Jersey. I directly, along with Ms. Sheila, we sit on these calls and these public forums with the New Jersey Cannabis Regulatory Commission, and we use our voices to make it clear that we already have sweat equity in the cannabis industry on everything that it took from us, all the folks that were incarcerated, people that may have died, from police interactions within that. There has been so much taken that it's insulting to see people think they're going to make a dime on the backs of our blood, sweat, and tears and ashes. So we're actively being a voice to make sure those who have been incarcerated, which we call our legacy market, they're not dealers, they're not hoodlums, they're not gangs, they are called legacy. So everybody mark that word. They are our legacy market. They should be first in line to have an entrepreneurial pipeline to get into the industry, as well as get their licenses, certifications, and business technical assistance. Same thing that goes for our small minority, Black and brown women-owned businesses and veteran-owned businesses. They also should have a pipeline that does not prohibit them from opening a business in this space. And that's not even the best part of that business. Plant touching makes the least amount of money. The big chunk of that is in the ancillary, what we call ancillary. So if you have an HVAC company, a transportation company, an electric company, a plumbing company, an accounting company, a marketing company, an advertising like I have, these are the other areas that industry could actually help us with and start making up some of that ground for the wealth gap. The state right now does have a 25% allocation that must go to people of color, the applications or the licenses. So that's pretty good because you don't get that a lot of places. Also, we recently worked with our city leaders to pass the Buy Camden ordinance, where 30% of all city contracts from city agencies will go to small and diverse businesses of the city of Camden. We didn't have to specifically say Black, brown, women, or veteran-owned because we're 96% people of color in Camden. So all we had to do is make sure we targeted our zip codes. And so the ordinance is based on if you have a business in the zip code of Camden, which will capture all the businesses of color. But that's also important that I press upon our city officials for. We need a better procurement system. It's antiquated. It's outdated. They're still doing paper. These systems are inconsistent across various municipalities and various organizations when you're trying to get a contract or you're trying to submit a quote. So we need some consistency that streamlines the process for our business owners. And these are some of the things that we are pushing for, not just at the city, at the county and the state level. You'll hear from Commissioner Young, but I talk with him all the time about some of the things that we need, and constantly being an advocate for the city over the past few years when it comes to our businesses, whether it's, you know, going to visit the EDA or talking with them, or, you know, talking with assembly folks, or going down to the League of Municipalities. Myself, along with our president, Ray Jones, we do a full court press, and we're ready for quarter 2 right now in this playoff round. So thank you for having me here today.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Like I said, a wealth of knowledge, people, a wealth of knowledge. In the chat, she's going to put information that will allow small businesses to be able to reach out to CBA or to her personally for her own business, because of the fact that this is what we are supposed to do anyway. We're supposed to uplift one another when it comes down to the businesses that we are trying to develop. It's okay not to know. It's okay to have questions. It's okay to get started, don't know where you're going. I've read more stories in COVID time that has shown me people who have lost their jobs, who have actually stopped doing what they were doing for the last maybe 10, 15 years and went out and started a multi-million-dollar business because it was up here. All they had to do was just let it out. And the timing was right. So as Michelle said, you know, all of the businesses, all of the banks and everything need to look at what it is that's necessary in order for them to stop looking at us as these 099 kids, you know, that are trying to get a business started, but we have to go through all the training. Now in Camden City, we have something that's pretty, like, you know, cool. We have CBA and we have LAIDA. So we've got 2 things that sit right here with us that all we have to do is, like, you know, work with them, let them work with us, and let us learn what it is that we need to know. So we can have a little bit of a intermission. I want to let any of the audience that may have any questions, I'm looking at the chat and to see if there's anything there. There's a few people that have to jump off because of, and there's some contact information in here. If there are any questions regarding anything that we've talked about so far, education and the economics that we don't know and things of that nature, think about credit reports, think about credit ratings, think about these things. Think about school uniforms when the children have to go back to school in September. Are we going to unify and say we don't want school uniforms anymore? Because that's going to be another economic burden on the families who are still trying to just come out of the COVID thing as it is. So we have a lot of things that we need to start sharing with one another, whether we do it on this Zoom, we do it in Facebook chats, we do it wherever you can do it, and however you can connect to the people that are on this Zoom tonight. Just be sure that you connect with them. Our Commissioner Young is here, so his information is right there on Google. You can just Google him. You can Google everybody that's on here tonight, actually. But you can get the information so that way you can be in touch with them. Emailing is the most important way that you can communicate with anybody. A phone call is great, but it's a temporary situation. An email is something that you're writing, and the pen is always mightier. So if you use that when you're actually trying to get information, you're going to get a response, and then you'll have something that you're going to retain. So before we go any further, I just wanted to just read something to you real quick that I found today. This is in thoughtscompany.com on racism. And it gave me a dictionary definition. It says, what is racism really? The use of the term has become so popular that it has spun off related terms such as reverse racism, horizontal racism, or internalized racism. But let's start with the American College Dictionary definition. Racism has 2 meanings. 1, the belief that a race accounts for differences in human character or ability, and that a particular race is superior to others. 2, discrimination or prejudice based upon race. Somewhere along the line in my lifetime, I saw a movie that was called South Pacific. And in this movie, South Pacific, it was a song that was sung that was called, "You Have to Be Carefully Taught." And in order for you to be carefully taught, that means that you had to be taught how to be afraid and how to treat people that were different than you, different, less than. And this is what has gone on through decades and decades and decades of our time. This conversation has to be held because of the fact that we now have to get to a point where we are the people that are actually going to make the changes that are yet to come. We said we were the people. We acknowledged it during the Obama administration. We've talked about it. It's 400 and some years after the fact. It's 1600 and some plus years after the fact. And here we are still looking at eyes on the prize. What does that mean to us? So I'm gonna take you to another place, but then I'm gonna take you into environmental, because once you learn about the environmental side of all of this, it's gonna really kind of freak you out. But one of the things that I wanna say before we go there, we are looking at racisms in so many different forms, but one of the racisms that we definitely have to start looking at is the racism of our own. The racism of self, the racism of Black people against Black people, the racism of Black people against brown people against Black people against Asians, Asians against Native Americans. We have to stop trying to kill all the humans, because if we kill all the humans, there'll be nothing left but the animals and trees. And at the rate we're going, we are killing each other on a daily basis for things that mean nothing. We don't own anything. Nichelle just made it clear that we need more of the process to work for us in order for us to be able to do the things that we need to do. But in the process, we are out here killing each other over a car, over some sneakers, over a girlfriend, over a bottle of juice. We're not even talking about the drug world as it was, because now the cannabis world is a new world. It's an open door. A door that we are now able to go through. Like the LGBTQ people came through their door when it was their turn. It's our turn to walk through this door. So I just want to open that door for you to get your minds like kind of twisted so that you can get ready for this, the next part of this conversation. Because when we do come back, after we talk about environmental racism, we're going to have some more input on why we do what we do to each other. Why are we so hell-bent on hurting one another when all we have to do is just work together? Do you have any idea that the Black businesses, the Black industry alone, put in billions of dollars, almost trillions of dollars in non-essential things? Flat screen television, cell phones, cars, all of the things that are basically that we don't really need, but we just got to feel better about ourselves. So we go and buy these things. We're the engine that's running this country. That's why they're upset, because we're not coming back to work. So we have to actually start looking at all of these things and telling each other, it's time to do this together as a unit. So now I'm going to introduce my next guest. This young man has been in my life for a very long time now, and 1.7 trillion, thank you. So, so with that being said, walking into the environmental part of our racisms, Samir Nichols is the executive director of Superior Arts Institute. Young man who saw vision, and he had a dream basically and turned it into a vision. And he is walking in another type of environmental situation that he basically just learned about and was so passionate about it that he wanted to talk to us about it tonight. So Samir, if you're ready, I would like to bring you on so that you can talk to everybody about our environmental racisms.
Hey, Mrs. Green, Mrs. Sheila, the many different names that I have for you. First of all, it's an honor to be here, always with PBCIP. And so it's funny how I'm here tonight, not in like two different capacities, talking about the arts and the environment. More importantly, we just recently partnered with the Trust for Public Land. And yes, we are very new in the onboarding process to learning about the injustices of the environment in not just places like Camden, but in Black and Brown communities across the nation. And so, I think it's really interesting when you talk about environmental racism or environmental injustice, because so when you talk about, environmental justice, that word kind of speaks to it's better, and it's not, right? Living in a place like Camden, we are one of 37 municipalities, right? That means that there's 30 to 37 different towns or towns or cities in where we live. Well, guess what? There's only one sewage plant, right? And so think about that from an environmental perspective. All of those hundreds of years of piping that we have, it all flows to Camden. And when our trash, when this incinerator that it flows through is overworked, it then dumps into our Delaware River. So our waterways, and again, being very new in this onboarding process, being exposed to it, I think of growing up in Fairview, right? I grew up in the Fairview section of Camden. And my mom would wake me up at night to have me run downstairs and help her pump, and I mean, like literally pump water out of our basement. Because we all have, I know some parents who grab the bucket, right? So when it rains, we think that stormwater is a normal thing. Sometimes when we send our kids outside to play in that puddle, I'm very scared of what I learned about the puddles in the city of Camden. Because when it floods, that's not just regular storm water. Sometimes it is. Let's give or take. But 9 out of 10 times, it is that storm water, that sewage water being backed up into our streets, onto our roads. And guess what? That's an issue. That is just one layer of environmental injustice. And guess what? I will say the CCMUA in the city has been making long strides from the science, from the data, but that's just one injustice of our environment. It's funny how we love parks, right? Our parks are so small and they're more compacted. When you think of parks on a national level, there are parks in suburban communities that are twice as big as our parks, but guess what? They're underutilized. You know why? Because it's not the same as a city park. So again, that's another environmental injustice. A park near chemical plants. We've learned that insects and mice drippings. Most of us live. I know people. I'm not gonna say most of us because I don't. I know a few folks in the city of Camden who have, rats and roaches, right? Like some people, not rats, mice. That's a typical field thing. I live near a field. I would see one here and there in my mom's house. But those drippings are called is science and data that leads towards asthmatic use or effects on the health of children. So again, when I think of the environmental injustices, I just named several and these are ones that we are being briefed on and exposed to. And our job here from the artistic perspective is to bring the residents from Camden into the conversation and get their opinions on how they're living, to be exposed and to unmask the naked truth of environmental racism. At our recent press release announcing a project, one of our county commissioners notified us that when the traffic flow on 676 and the highway, how that alone affects us, right? Because when those cars are standing at a standstill, guess what? When you're riding through other neighborhoods, they're miles and miles and miles away from where the houses are, from where people live. Whereas here, it is a direct, it's directly affecting Black and Brown communities, right? It's the air we breathe. It brings me into my next talking point, right? EMR that recently just happened, I'm not going to say Covanta, but that neighborhood, Waterfront South, right? We all are no strangers to what just happened over in Waterfront South just a few months ago, and what happened there, and what what the air quality is. When Commissioner Nass said that Camden had one of the worst in the nation on the ratings of air quality, I thought to myself, but what is it, just a bubble over Camden? You know what I mean? And what is that bubble and how do we pop it? And so I think understanding the environmental perspective and I mean my job here is to strictly hear the city, hear the residents, hear the community, hear how this affects them. And we all been no strangers to the word of trust in the science, right? And so we're listening to the science here. I think that this is when I was in a meeting and they said to me, we were talking about excessive heat and how that affects, African American communities, and how heat alone, right? And communities like Camden, because of there was charts on the pavement and how much hotter it is in our communities than and it correlates to having trees, right? We need more trees, right? When you go down the street, how many trees do you see, right? So there's direct studies, and I'm not going to say I'm the expert. I'm not going to sit here and talk to you and say I am the expert on environmental racism, but I will say that from being exposed to this arts project, which we have several events coming up, and we invite everyone on this call to be a part of them. I'm actually going to drop our first one in the chat. It's going to be at the fireworks. It's an open mic, and we are inviting you all to come in and have that conversation with us, because we understand that if we look up, and in 100 years, North Camden is one neighborhood, and there's data out there that suggests this. North Camden will be underwater because of flooding. So if we don't look up and think about it, and those that live in Parkside, you are one of the neighborhoods that actually aren't on the list. There's a map and an interactive tool, and we were looking at it today because I wanted to really figure out how I could connect to what the issues are in Parkside. And you know what they told me on the expert said? They said Parkside is a neighborhood you want to live in. Why? Because it wasn't a red line neighborhood, and it has access to green space. It has access to acres and acres of land. It is not, when they talked about redlining and how redlining connected to connecting Black and brown community people to neighborhoods that were connected to hazardous locations, that to me is concerning. That's a direct racism. And so there are so many injustices and things that we look up. So one of the things that they talked about, or that when in doing our research we discovered, was the environment. When you think about it, when you think about the environment, what's the first thing you think about? The earth. No, it's not the earth. It's not the trees. It's not the plants. The environment is everything. It's our offices. It's our schools. It's it's our homes, right? It's the track that we run. It is everything that we would just not think. Today there was a term that I was exposed to, NIMBY. Not in my backyard. A friend of mine said that term to me today, and when she said it, that was my only conversation with my people here, because I said, oh no, we have to start showing up. And when I think of it from a next sector perspectives, we have to, I see a county commissioner here who's going to hold us all accountable. So he's going to love what I'm about to say. We have to show up. We have to show up to those meetings. We have to show up to the planning board meetings. We have to be involved. We have to show up as residents, right? We have to show up, and we have to make sure that we are involved when a project plant is coming, or when when we're deciding that something needs to go on in the improvement authority, and these things are happening, and these ordinance, and Michelle talked a little bit about the ordinance process today. When this is happening on a local level, a state level, and a federal level, the real idea here is showing up. And what I learned today is that if I'm going to just be totally transparent, if white folks will show up and not allow it in their neighborhoods, we shouldn't allow it in ours. And so I had someone say to me today, there's a few white folks in the white towns that will say NIMBY, okay? And my friend is gonna love that I use the reference, because I think we need to not just adopt it, not just steal it, but we need to take it back. And to the people who don't have a backyard, you say not in your front yard. And that's the reality. So I'm excited. Again, I'm going to drop my contact information in the chat. I'm going to also drop the event in the chat as well so that everyone can have that. I'm looking forward. We have several events. We're also going to be doing some participatory theater workshops that will consist of, you know, the residents really helping us guide this conversation. And we look forward to doing productions in the coming of days. Sorry about that, mini net products. So we look forward to, in the coming of days, having look, one thing about Apple, guys, is when you have all Apple products and people are calling, they're all ringing. So all of my products are going off because people are trying to call me right now. So I totally apologize about that. But so what happens is, again, we have several events being planned. Camden Lutheran Housing has been a long-term partner. PBCIP has been a partner. We're going to be bringing this to Parks, their sponsorship from the National Endowment of the Arts for this project from us. So we are looking forward to it. And I'm going to stop talking at this point and drop everything in the chat and look forward to seeing you all soon.
Thank you so much, Samir. So that was an experience of new information that we more than likely did not know about. And it's been here, it's been written, they've been teaching it. So, you know, we just did not take advantage of what was going on in our environment, and we should be more. We noticed that the seasons have changed and they're changing differently. We noticed that it's hotter than it normally would be. We noticed that it gets cooler when it's not supposed to get cool. So there are environmental processes that have been happening that we are actually looking at. The storm is coming through, and it's more lightning and thunder than it is rain at this point. So we're trying to make sure that all the electricity stays together. You know, we have had asthmas in our city for God only knows how long, and nobody knew where they came from. We had people who had never had asthma in their life and didn't have any family history of asthma in their family. And then all of a sudden, these people, based on where they lived, were in an asthmatic situation because they lived not too far from either 676, or they live right next to a trash to steam plant, or whatever it was that they lived. This is what it is. Skin conditions as well. Thank you so much. Skin conditions as well. People ended up with rashes and all kinds of stuff. Environmentally, economically, educationally, racism has been this giant balloon over top of us. And we've been living inside of it with all of these problems, which is so unfair to us. It's been unfair. It's still unfair. And we have to stop it from going into our next generation. Now, we know we have children that have the I don't care and it's all about me kind of thing. We have to reverse that somehow. We got to pull that back somehow. They got to get into the you do have to care. Because if you don't care, they'll take it all from you and then you'll all be dead. That's it. It'll be just over. So we have to teach them a whole nother way of how this thing goes. I don't want to take up any more time. We're like not too far away from whatever. And I have a very, very, very beautiful and important presentation that's coming in from CCPD, because this was the highlight of why I really want to talk about this tonight, but I'm not going to go any further than that. I need to read something to you in our brief. Tonight, we'll take a moment to reflect on each person who was sacrificed at the sake of racism. You think about anybody you know, personal, private, people that, you know, were public figures, people that weren't public figures. Take that into consideration. You can send the names in the chat, which is fine. That'll be a good thing for all of us to be able to see. However, this marks the 1-year anniversary of the murder of George Floyd, witnessed by millions through the brave video lens of a young Black woman, whose name I don't know right this moment. I was supposed to look it up, but I didn't get a minute. And she videotaped this and allowed the whole entire world to watch something that we now are still grappling with, because it's been kind of hard. It's been extremely hard with that and COVID and everything else going on. This has been an extremely hard situation. So let us reflect on another time in our history where due to the expectation or the right that he wanted to use to vote, a young man by the name of Jimmy Lee Jackson, who was 26 years old, was killed February 18th, 1965 in Marion, Alabama. This provoked the March to Selma. And this is what the late Congressman John Lewis told us. He said, this is what provoked the March to Selma. This is the reason. We always wanted to know, like, why were they marching? But we didn't know that Jimmy Lee had gotten killed because he went to vote. And they asked him, why are you, they actually said this, and I'm not going to say it because I'm not going to be disrespectful to none of us. What are you doing here? Why are you trying to do anything? They beat him, they shot, they were going to attack his mother, and he jumped in front of his mother and took the bullet. And that's how he died. So this is just two of millions, maybe billions, if not a number larger than that, of people of color who have been killed due to racism because of the things that they have known or the things that they believed in, they were strong enough to stand up for. We are standing on the shoulders of so many people that have died for this cause that it behooves me to not understand why this Zoom didn't go out to 100 billion people to come back to really have this conversation. But what I'm finding out about my own Black people, and I don't mean this disrespectfully to anybody, I think some of us are afraid. I think some of us are afraid to actually talk about what we know that has been done to us that's been wrong. So racism has grown into its own pandemic, okay? It's its own pandemic. It's not an epidemic, it's a pandemic. It's worldwide. And as humans, we have grown blinders over our eyes and have stopped seeing each other. The Black on Black, brown on brown, brown on Black, Black on brown racism has increased 100-fold over the past 100 years. Once upon a time, we wasn't killing each other like this. Now it's like it's a daily occurrence and we're just used to it. This is where we start the conversation. Why? Because until we stop disrespecting and killing our own, can we actually confront the bigger issue of racism and discrimination that has become the newest monster in our life? We should really thank DJT, the former guy that we thought he was president. We knew he wasn't, for bringing them out of the shadows and into the light so that we could see who they were. Because for a long time, we didn't know who they were. They're in our police departments. They're in our administrations. They're in our politics. They're in our teachers. They're in everything. They're all out there. And they have mobilized and put themselves together, and they have infiltrated our lives with a smiley face, acting like everything is fine. Okay, I'm your friend. We're good. Yet and still they have an agenda. The agenda is to get rid of as many of us, my brother John Young, Samir Nichols, and any other man that's on here, get rid of most of the men, because that's their major threat. But now they're coming after the females because they realize that we're not stupid and that we're going to stand up for our men and we're going to do what's necessary. So with that being said, I'm now going to go to our next guest speaker. I met Commissioner now Young a while ago. And of course, as a commissioner, you just don't know how a person is and what they're going to do and what they're going to say. But last year, there was a whole new Jonathan Young that showed up. On the steps of the police department, Commissioner Young gave a speech that if you go back and find that video, you will understand what I'm saying, okay? That was the most powerful speech that I heard a politician of color give in my life, in my whole entire life. And that made me see that we still have hope because they still exist. Those gladiators are still with us. They have not gone anywhere. They're just moving a little slower, but they're getting to where they need to go. So without further ado, Commissioner, come say your piece about what you know, how you feel about political racism.
Thank you so much. If I can see myself blushing, I probably am. So I'm very, very. Thank you for your kind words, for sure. You know, I just want to kind of give a small sample size background of where I'm from, because I'm not a New Jersey native. I've only been here for roughly 25 years or so. But I grew up in a small town called Sharon Hill, right outside of Southwest Philadelphia. Town was in the 60s, and it was made up for Black men coming back from the war. So, Shamir, when you talk about placing folks and you talk about environmental, they built these houses, and if you look at it, and you know, I can look across, and it's right over by oil fields, right? So, so it's the same thing. So we're thinking we're getting a bargain, and we're coming out of the projects, and we're going into what we call the suburbs. And it's the same store. It was a square mall, and it was 99% of us. It was all Black, and we had one school that eventually closed down, and we were bussed out. Our school district, I grew up in Delaware County, and our school district in 1980 decided to bring all the schools together. So it took that long for them to actually bring all white and Black schools together. So, in growing up in there, racism was true. We can walk through Sharon Hill. I actually lived in Darby Township, but we didn't have a post office, so we had to be called Sharon Hill. So that's where we were, right? So, but if you walk through Sharon Hill, which was a majority of a white community, sometimes your walk-in turned into a run. So there was, you know, I grew up around it on a consistent basis. I seen politics in Delaware County controlled solely by white men. It's coming too. That thunder's getting really, it's coming our way, Shell. So racism for me was always real in growing up. But I always felt as though I needed to make a change at some point. I watched my father kind of be a political figure, but he wasn't even never elected to office, but always dealt with politicians. So I always kind of felt a need to be in politics and kind of like politics. Fast forwarding and move over to Jersey, me and my wife come over, we come in, and I fell in love with the city. Even though I don't live in the city, and I started to see the same story in a different place, right? So for me, you know, people say, well, you grew up in the suburbs. It's no different story. The same exact story that's going on in the city was going on in our suburbs. The same racism, the same fact of putting everybody over there and letting them fend for themselves. No schools, you know, no services, small police station, no library, no community center. What do they expect us to do? The basketball courts are falling apart, right? Our parks are small. So same story, different place. So which fast forwards me to getting on a platform and understanding that in order for us to make a change, that platform is just not a platform just to sit there and to do nothing with. I always make a statement that, you know, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. But when you get a chance to get in Rome, then you can change Rome. But you can't change it unless you get to the table. And you have to be able to get involved. And you have to be able to get in the table. Through the George Floyd thing and last year it was going, I kept repeating a statement of keep hollering the streets. You keep the streets going and I'll keep the backroom conversation going. The problem with that is that when I go into those back rooms, I get into those conversations, it's just me still. So still, even in the back rooms, is still an over presence of nobody who looks like me. So it's still an uphill battle. So even though we think we've made it and we've gotten to that back room, there's still a little bit of battle that has to go. So we talk a lot about policy, and I look at policy as words on a paper, because if we don't change mindsets of individuals, then those policies that we set in place mean absolutely nothing. So what we need to start doing is we need to start changing mindsets and changing those theories. So this way here, if we go into a bank, if their mindset has changed and they're not looking at the individual, they're looking at my credit score and my income just like they're looking at anybody else's. That's the mindset change. The mindset changes in policy is in when you look at a government as a whole, and you look at the employment and you look at the people there, right? You don't see a whole lot of diversity that's inside of government. But that's just a series of years and years and years of just the same folks that are there. So I say that to say this. In order for us to make the change, we need to make sure that we are at the table, not on the menu, on a consistent basis. We need more at the table. The more at the table, the more worth that we have. And that's what it's really all about. And that's how you keep the seat as well. No matter what we do, we can say what we want to say, and we can do everything we want to do. We have to answer to the white man at some point. So us acting like bulls in a china shop all the time, it really is always going to get us there. So we get in those back rooms and we start to have those conversations. We start to change the concept and we start to change the mindset. How do we keep that going? At this point, we have to reach back and we have to start teaching our youth. We have to start really educating us on it. Now let's go back to the education side of it. Just having civics in high school or in school period, just making sure that we understand the role of government, making sure we understand what it is, making sure we understand the history of how we got into the voting right, not just blurbs of it, but making sure that they understand the full story of where we are and how we got to where we are today. So it's important for us when we talk about political racism and making sure that we're at the table, making sure that we're involved enough to get on school boards so we can change the narrative, making sure that we're getting on county committees, making sure that we're trying to go for running for councils and really just getting involved in our neighborhoods and understanding that it's really not all about government help. We can do it, right? But we can do a lot as well. If we really showed them the voting power that we have, that's the worth. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. It's all about votes and who can get into the office. But we're too busy when we try to figure out, and we're too busy tearing ourselves apart to come together as a people, making sure that we're always consistent. And listen, we can fight. We can all fight for the same thing. We all got the same ideas and everything, but we're just at such a point, and Sister Sheila, you brought it up very, we're so hateful to ourselves. How do we really expect other people to not treat us the same exact way? Think about that. If we're disrespectful to ourselves, how can anybody else say, we can't even figure it out? So there's a lot of soul searching that we need to do as well in order to move forward. Is it possible? Absolutely, it's possible. For no doubt about it, because we're a strong people. But we have to be able to do that. We have to be able to constantly move forward. One thing that I really try to practice, and I hope Michelle can attest to this, that I like to keep a clean plate, and I like to really make sure that I'm a man of my word, because my father taught me a couple things really in life, that your name and your word, that's it, right? And I really try to build my life on those values. And to making sure that when I say I want to do something, I go through it. And sometimes it doesn't happen as quick as most people think. It should happen, but we got to be able to do it, and we got to be able to have voices like Michelle. We talk on a consistent basis where she knows that if she sends me on a mission, that her voice is going to be heard through me, because it's that constant of her being in my ear and her making me understand what the true issue is. And that's what it is. And listen, she could very well get up and scream and holler at meetings and be crazy and go radical. And what does that do, right? A lot of people, listen, I'm just keeping it real as a politician, right? It's turn off. We turn it off. We don't listen to it no more. So it's all about the approach. It's all about how you garnish those relationships, right? And that's the most important thing. And I think that's what we have to do it. Listen, as much as we don't look at, all white people aren't bad. They're really not.
Yeah.
At some point, we have to be able to get into them and talk to them and figure it out and navigate our way through the system. Because if not, then the system stays clogged, and we'll never get through it. So we have to be smarter in some respect. There's always a time to protest, and we do, and we shouldn't stop. I'm never, ever want to say we shouldn't. We should never stop letting our voice be heard. But there's so many different ways that we can do it, and to make sure that we change mindsets, and that's what it's all about. So as we go forward and where are we now and what do we do and how do we start to move? It's a conversation. I think political racism right now is really, really scary. And I'm going to flip it a little bit where I think people are using racism for political gain. And I think that's a deadly game that we play, because what ends up happening is that you end up watering down the true meaning of it. Right? So everything now that happens, oh, I lost this over here because it's racism. Oh, I did this because we at some point we really got to stop. And I'm not saying that, it might be, but I just think it's so much. And I think some of it's getting watered down. The main message is getting it. So when we start having these conversations like this are the true conversations. Funny story in a way. I was door knocking with an individual last night over in Merchantville. We're knocking on the door, we go. We knock on it's a middle-aged white guy. He answers the doors. He starts going off. F Biden, Trump's the man, blah, blah, blah. It's supposed to be a Democrat. Now, we're knocking on Democratic doors looking in the primary, looking for their support for a guy that's running over in Merchantville. And he's going on and on. But this middle-aged white man literally said to me, he said, just so you know, Trump did more for blacks and Hispanics than he did. I said, really? How would you know? When I look at you, you don't look anything like me, right? So this is what we're dealing with, right? Like, how do you win that war?
You don't.
Right? So, but the education process of it isn't, and I ended up having a conversation with him versus having a screaming and yelling match with him, and kind of just said some things and kind of moved on my way back down the street. Gentleman came out and apologized. Because I very well could have went off on the wrong end of that, and it could have went totally a different way. Right? So and lesson learned, don't knock on the crazy guys during merchant.
Look, John, we just figured it out. They're all
you know what I mean. But listen, it's the game of politics is in Washington is a crazy story. It's getting better. Another thing. Here's another one. Think about this. They want to change policing so bad on the national level, so they say, right? They let the George Floyd bill expire before they were even to move it. So it was so important to them.
Oh my God.
To make sure that this gets forward, and they let it go. Oh, we got to start over. But it's the 1 year anniversary.
Yeah.
That's policy over mindset. right? Because if the mindset was to really change it, they would have did everything in their power to make sure that that thing was done before that 1 year anniversary came.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
So that's what we have to start working on. And that's when politics really starts to get, you know, and you listen to folks and I say, you know, just like Rama used to say, right, the loudest guy talking in the room is normally the guy who, you know, wants to, hey, I got it over here, look over here, right? But he's really doing something with his hand on the other side over here.
Right.
So for me, I choose to do it the opposite way. I choose to just do the work and just be about our people and about everyone, right? And it's not just about our people, but I make sure it's hard for me as a county official to, you know, as I love the city and we want to do as much for the city, but I think about Lindenwold. I'm thinking about out in spots out in Sipperville and out in Winslow. You know, there are pockets that are all over that our Black and brown folks are hurting throughout the county. You know, think about what we do as when we allow people to, you know, Section 8, right, affordable housing. Hey, let's move them over here. They still take you out of the city and put you in the suburb. They don't spread you out. You know, let's put them all right here. Right? So if you really wanted to do it, spread them out. You know what I mean? Put them right in the smack dab in the middle of a couple of these other really nice neighborhoods. Let it really flourish. So there's work to be done all through. So we're going to try to do some things where we're really going to really start to raise some awareness in our Black community. I just asked Michelle a question this morning about you know, about the African American Chamber of Commerce. You know, do we have one here in South Jersey? A small chapter. I know we have the New Jersey chapter, but do we have a small local chapter that worries about South Jersey or worry about Camden County? So these are some things I think that we should really start to work on. And that we really start to rise, and we really can start to collectively move everyone forward. Because just like Michelle is, and she's out, and you know, she's out of the city now. But I can tell you what, most folks that I run into in Camden County, roots. Everybody got roots in the city.
Everybody got roots, yeah. Everybody's
got roots in it, no matter what color you are. No matter what color you are, right? Everybody seems to have roots in the city. So when we look at it on the whole throughout Camden County, it's you know, we're in a decent spot. I think we're a very diverse community. There are our pockets. We have our pockets. I'm not going to say that we know, hey, you know, Camden County is the ultimate, you know, purified place of no racism. But as a whole, I see a Camden County in a good spot. I see our police department in a very good spot as far as what we do. You know, naysayers are what the naysayers are, but the numbers are what they are. And the response throughout the nation, just to have it being talked about, right, is a movement in the right direction. And I think that's what happens, but we can't get silent on it. No matter who we are, if we're politicians or we're just advocates or we're just mom and pops, you know, just hanging out on a stoop somewhere. Always make sure our kids know the right things, know the truthful things, let them read, do what they need to do. But I put my information in the chat room in there. And again, just make sure that we are, you know, keep your voices heard. Keep pushing in the streets. And I promise you, as long as I am an elected official, I will always keep our conversation going in the back rooms. I refuse to forget. I never forget where I came from, how I grew up, and I know who always has my back. So for that, I'm too grateful to do anything else but the right thing by our people.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Young. Thank you so much. I give you the name Commissioner Young because that's your title, but John, listen, you know, it has to be said, and you're saying it. And I'm glad that we can all hear it One of the great things about our meetings is that they're recorded. You can go back and look at them anytime. So if you missed something, you can go back and see it again. But this right here is like all part of our history. This is going to be part of our little historical thing that we're going to put together. And there are going to be all of these little, movies and videos of, the time of COVID, when we were all on video, when we were all talking to one another. So Commissioner, thank you so much for that. Thank you for taking the time, finding the time. It's really important that we hear from our elected officials and making sure that people understand that it's because we did elect you that you are sitting where you're sitting, so that we can get to you. Okay. So we saw something enough to say, yes, you're the guy. And that's what we're going to make sure of, that we now know that person is sitting there that we can go to and say, okay, you're not going to get it the way you want to, but you're going to get it the way it's necessary. Okay. That's the thing that makes a difference. So I thank, the commissioners. I thank, even though he's not on tonight, Al Dyer came out and helped us with our cleanup last month. So, people are doing things behind the scenes that we don't know anything about. And that's what makes our unit so strong, and it makes everything that we're doing so much stronger. So now, before we go into our last presentation, which is going to take the rest of the night, I'm going to take like 2.5 minutes. I'm going to do this pretty fast. I have my PSAs that I have to give you. So June 1st, we have the Welcome Virtual Mobile Farmers Market that's coming to Parkside in Camden High Park. On Thursdays between 2:30 and 3:30, bringing fresh fruits and vegetables, taking credit, cash, debit, SNAP, and EBT with a 50% off one bag if you have a SNAP or EBT. They have $3 bags, $6 bags, and $9 bags. If you want more information, you can call 856-246-3176 or email eatwell, one word, @virtua.org. On June 19th will be our last summer cleanup with PBCIP. Look for the flyer. We're going to let you know exactly where this is going to happen at. Bell Pharmacy is still doing vaccinations right here in Parkside. If you have not been vaccinated, you can go to Bell Pharmacy. You can do a walk-in, or you can call 856-963-4742. To get your vaccine. They are giving you options of at least 2. I think it's Moderna and Johnson & Johnson, or Johnson & Johnson. Become a PBCIP member. This couldn't happen if we didn't have members. And members want to know more. You have to be a part of what we're doing. We can't go and do the whole city. We need to know who we are exposing. So we need to actually get our membership. Go to pbcip.org to become a member, or you can call me at 856-964-0440, extension 13, and tell me what it is that you need to become membership, because community is our strength. Housing help. The moratorium is in effect until 8/13/21. The utility shut-off will start 6/30/21. So if you haven't paid one dime on your utility bill all this time, you need to actually contact PSE&G and let them know what it is that you're going through, and let them help you before you get shut-off notices and you're going to try to drive Commissioner Young and anybody else that's an elected official crazy to try to get your electric turned back on. Let's not be stupid. Let's do what you need to do. Okay. You have a bill. Look on your bill for the phone number. Call them up. Tell them what you need. They have programs. LIHEAP. Once I think it's a couple of programs. I don't know all the names of them, but there's a lot of programs that are there that you can go into to help you get your bills during this moratorium. The OEO is the best. Okay, this is my own notes. OEO is one of the best places to go to for that kind of information, and their phone number is 856-964-6887. So you can call them about housing, you can call them about rent, you can call them about mortgage, you can call them about anything. It will give you the information. The Parkside United Methodist Church Pantry is open every 4th Saturday of each month from 8:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Masks are required. The entrance is on Kenwood Avenue, and you can get in touch with them by calling 856-964-2254. The New Jersey Superior Courts has a webinar, info webinar on expungements on the 2nd and 4th Thursday monthly, 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. It's virtual. Registration is required. You can call 973-653-2910, extension, kind of long, 24032. This is for expungements. This is for people that's got records that they're trying to get cleaned up. Okay, so that's very, very important. Members only. To our members, if you're interested in receiving Let me get it first. This book right here is called a Consumer Action Handbook. I kept this one because on the inner page, as you can see, is our president. Okay. This is the last one that I actually received because it's the last one that had his picture in it. But I have at least 15 of them because I have them from all of the presidents prior to. If you want that booklet, it is the book that will tell you everything you need to know about anything you want to know anything about. And it's not that big. It's only that thick. So it's a booklet that gives you all kinds of information, state and county, federal information, corporate information, consumer information, key contact information. This is from the federal government. When they send you something like this, every household should have 2 or 3 of these. So if you need one, call me at 964-0440, extension 13, and let me know. I have to order them. So I'm going to order them based on the 25 that I get at a time, because that's the way they have to give them to me. So with that being said, I am now at the highlight of my whole night. 1 year ago, this week, we marched in Camden. 1 year ago, Philadelphia was on fire, being looted and tore up from the floor up. Camden sat over here just as quiet and just as peaceful under the guidance at that time of Chief Joe Wasaki. The captains and the lieutenants and everyone that was underneath of him did the job that they knew how to do. They kept the peace in our little city. We didn't lose anything or anybody. And that was one of the proudest moments I think I've had with Camden City as long as I've been here. Since then, things have happened and things have changed. So our main topic tonight was racism, but our second topic was, where are we now? So I'd like to introduce to now everyone, because this is a new title for her. I'd like to introduce our new captain, Captain Vivian Coley, who is sitting in for our chief, who I knew was going to be running around because of the George Floyd situation. And he's doing what he has to do. And he is our new chief. Gabe Rodriguez walks Parkside in any other city area that you want him in. But he couldn't be with us tonight. He will make it on my next meeting, I am sure. But we have our Captain Vivian Coley, who I have, I'm so in love with this young lady because she is all of the things that we needed in a female. And it gives us that extra that makes us feel just a little bit stronger about what it is that we're about to go through. So I present to you guys, Captain Vivian Coley, CCPD, it's your floor.
Thanks, Miss Sheila. I so appreciate you because I love you more. Oh my gosh, you were just what I needed. I mean, this is totally different for me. I have a background in investigations and I'm going to go through all of that. But first, I think we need to see Chief's vision. And there's a young man on the actual Zoom, Omar Wellington, and he's going to put up a video that's actually on our website. Omar, are you there?
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, let's see. build a new way together. Please follow us for more information on how you can help us change the culture of policing in America.
So with that being said, the video basically tells you everything about our chief's vision, and that's exactly where we are here at the department. Omar, did you want to say anything before we go into the website?
Sure. Yeah, I would just hello to everyone, and I just want to thank you all and commend you all for all of the work that you're doing. It's a really awesome call and great information. Um, you know, this is a really, really exciting time for the CCPD. And, you know, as you all know, the CCPD has built just a really solid and awesome foundation with the community policing model. And with Chief Rodriguez in the chief's spot now, he has a vision that is really off the charts. And he wants to literally create a new style and of policing, and he wants to bring the community and our neighbors in unprecedented ways. And so, you know, for me personally, I know it's been just a wonderful experience being a part of that vision and helping to grow that. And so, you know, I look forward to going through the website with you just to share it kind of is an outline that will take you through some aspects of his vision. That way we can go a little bit faster because I know we're short on time. But overall, it's really awesome, and it's really sparked an energy internally that is off the charts.
So before you guys go on, I just want you to know that we do have an additional half hour in comparison to our regular 8 o'clock stop. So if you do need some additional time, we can go up as far more than likely to at least 8:30. Okay. So if you need the time, take the time.
Thanks, Ms. Sheila. So Gabriel Rodriguez, he took over in December of 2021. I was made his executive officer as a lieutenant. And Chief Rodriguez, he has strong ties to the community. He was actually Chief Joe Waisaki's executive officer. So he's a former Kansas City resident, and he grew up in McGuire Gardens. Just to tell you a little bit about his background. So when I was made the executive officer, I felt like it was the greatest accomplishment that I could you know, actually gain here at the police department. I have 23 years of experience. My background includes nothing but investigations. I was the sole domestic violence liaison slash detective for the city when Metro started. So in 2013, I took on a role as a supervisor in the special victims unit, dealing with nothing but domestic violence, juvenile crime, missing persons, and sexual assault. So as the executive officer to the chief, I'm responsible for the village initiative. And that initiative is basically just what Ms. Sheila said earlier, that it takes the village to basically, you know, raise our children. On the weekends, we are conducting the curfew sweeps, building relationships with the community, and like grassroots organizations in the city to curtail any, you know, youth violence. We want to try to keep these kids safe and off the street. Officers are tasked with patrolling the streets, looking for youth. The volunteers are usually playing cards, talking, sharing information, and we're currently about to start some training for volunteers. But if an officer picks up a youth, the parents are called immediately, and the youth, they're escorted into the building where we then play games with them, offer a snack and information. Parents are given information on resources in the city, stuff that people don't even know exists. We give that out. Mentoring programs, Croc memberships. There's a lot of information that we have. There's a place called Pathstone on 27th Street. They have $1 million grant where our kids from the age of 18 to 24 can receive training free of charge. We're not handcuffing the kids, arresting them. This is just basically something to make them know that people are concerned about their safety. Um, last year, none of that was taking place. I'm also in charge of the READ program. That's a program where we are reading to youth. Community members are reading to the youth. We feed them breakfast and play games with them. That actually is, we have our next event next Saturday in the Branches Community Center. And we're starting another resource event for parents where there'll be an open gym. The girls will be allowed to play double dutch. And that will take place at the Heart of Camden. So just like Ms. Sheila said, like the question is where, are we now? Because none of that stuff was taking place last year. Ever since the inception of Metro, they've been really good at training us on de-escalation. Right now, we're always self-evaluating. We're ahead of the game in training as far as the country is concerned, and that's why we are considered a model agency. Chief Rodriguez's Unity Policing model, it has 5 core principles. Okay, one principle is de-escalation, empathy, wellness for officers, because if officers are in a bad place in their lives and overweight and can't get out the car, and how you want to help somebody else? So wellness is one of the components of his Unity Policing model. Leadership, because we want to be able to pass down the torch, and transparency, which is the most important core principle for me, because we want the community to know where we are, what the numbers are. There's no hiding anything. We want policy and procedure to be put out to our community so they'll know exactly what's supposed to take place if someone calls the police for a domestic violence incident. So we just want to continue to evolve and do the right thing together. Reduce and prevent crime. And so just like Ms. Sheila said, a few weeks ago, myself, another Hispanic female, Janelle Simpson, we were both made captains, and 2 other minority females were made lieutenants. So that's exceptional for me, because when I started 23 years ago, I would have never thought that we would have a seat at the table of commanders. I was just strictly focused on being a detective and helping, but this is something that's totally beyond belief for me as a Kansas City resident. I'm a mom of 3, I have 2 sons and a daughter. So the whole George Floyd thing, it impacted my life in a whole different way as an officer. So, we're also recruiting here in our neighborhoods for special law enforcement officers. We want the folks in our neighborhoods to police the neighborhoods, because how can you police the neighborhood that you're afraid of the people in? So let's just go through the let's go through the website, and I'll just explain some of the components, and Omar, you can jump in at any time
Sure.
to help me out.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, Omar, you can explain it. That would be awesome, because you developed it. It's the best thing ever.
Yeah, so we wanted to create a website with the chief vision, again, is unity policing, and really bringing the neighbors and the community in to the police department. Again, he always says, this is your police department. This isn't our police department. And so we really wanted to take a completely different approach here and really celebrate all of our neighbors and community on the website, and really have it be a place where everyone can go and gain all the information that you need as it relates to law enforcement information, but also folks in the community that are doing great things, that are helping to improve our community, which ultimately keeps it safe. And so here on the main page, you have the social media links at the top. You can see the 24-hour tip line, the emergency 911, You can see the need help button here. So for anyone that would need help, immediate attention. And then we have the main scrolling banner, which we put, things that are pressing of nature that we really want to accentuate. Um, as you scroll down, it's who we are. And this is with a video that you were just watching, just to set a tone and let everybody know where we're coming from. And again, as Captain Coley said, we're a model in the nation, but we want to take it to another level. And the chief wants to always be getting better. And so this sort of, defines what that is and what we're about. And then as you continue, it's our community section. And these are individuals or organizations that are doing really great things in our community. And we want to highlight them and get that out there. And in this way, anyone that wants to join those efforts can reach out to us or to them directly and really pitch in. Again, it's about unifying and coming together. There's also a way here for you to recognize your neighbors, so you can nominate someone that is doing the work right here on the site, and we'll get it and we'll reach out to you. So this is a great section here. We take this very seriously because again, it's really about bringing everybody together. The help keep our city safe section is if you have a crime tip, of course, you can write on here, email that to us, and it gets pushed directly to our investigative team. You can also join a Unity engagement team, and there'll be more information on what a Unity engagement team is as we go forward. But we really want to sort of define a team of neighbors that are working with us to prevent crime, promote safety, and ultimately improve society. And then lastly here, the employment opportunities for anyone interested in becoming an officer or becoming a part of the civilian staff. You can click this and then fill out the form, which the old website, you'd have to print out a 30-page or whatever it is application and write it and mail it in. And so it's a little obsolete. And so everything's up to date and fresh. And then we have our in the news section, which to the left, of course, is anything that is in the news, or any reason that the police department would be in the news. And then on the right, which is critical, is our missing persons. And it's just, obviously there's a picture of them because it's of utmost importance to us. And you can click on the missing persons and see all of the missing persons that there have been. And then down here, it's just Let's Get Social, which just again ties folks back to our social media feeds. And this is important because the idea of Unity policing is getting our entire community to really work together. And we want everyone to follow us and really be engaged and in tune with what we're doing. And we want to be engaged and in tune with what's going on in the community. And so obviously social media presents a really awesome way to do that. In addition, you have under About Us, and I won't go into all this stuff, but there's the Unity Policing definition, which you can read, and the leadership, which goes through sort of the leaders in the department. Our policies page, which is really important. So right now it says we are in the process of working with our collective community to ensure policies are in line with the Unity policing model. So we actually are bringing, and I know Ms. Sheila Green, you can attest to, we're bringing the community in because we want to work with the community to make sure that the policies reflect what it is the community wants it to reflect. And so this will be updated in the near future, but they'll all be listed here if you can find them very easily. Tour Your PD. Again, this is your police department. So this enables someone to fill out the form and request to take a tour of the police department and come on into the police department, which we encourage individuals and organizations. The in the news section is just what we went through before, which just shows anyone that's in the news. Our community section is the Unity Engagement Team, which we went over. Our community resources page, which again, we want to try to centralize all information. So of course, emergency 911, 24-hour tip line, call CCPD or email the police department, and then additional resources, which we're still in the process of building out for domestic violence, sexual assault, resources, resources for our youth, resources for our seniors, and then community outreach programs that are happening. And again, this is the foundation, but we really want to have meetings just like this to gather feedback and really just build this out over time. The careers tab will take you to, again, become an officer. You have the ability right on here to apply, as I mentioned before. And then last but not least, the contact us page, where again, you can see emergency 911, 24-hour tip line, contact CCPD, which is always important to have that, up front. And then you can report a crime through the Stop It app, which is super helpful for us to gather information. And then you can submit an officer commendation or an officer complaint right here on the website. Whereas before, again, you'd have to print out something, and it's this long process. No, we want to know who's doing right and then who you feel is not. We want to know that so we can address it. And then, of course, the Open Public Request Records Act request you can view right here. And so that's a very quick version of what the website is, or presentation of what the website is. I would urge you all to go to it and look through it and send us any thoughts. We are always open to, that's what we want. We want the collaboration. And the last thing I want to point out is with the Chief's vision is if you look at our new logo, if you notice it up here, and it sort of has the share of hands around the police department, around that patch. And the Chief's vision, again, is so awesome. And it's a reminder that the community is who the police department serves. And it's bold, it's different. You don't see, at least I haven't seen any police department in the country that has something like this, but that's what we want to do. We want to lead from the front. And I think that we're doing that. And this is just the beginning. There's a lot more to come that I'm excited to share with you as time goes. And I know the Chief's excited. And that concludes the presentation, Captain Kohler.
Yeah, so I will just say that with this website, there's a number of things that's happening in our building as well. When you walk into the police department, you'll notice that it's cold, it's dark, it's damp, it's like the service maybe, not what you expect. So Chief vision is to change that as well. I mean, we want to make sure that folks feel like they, receive service like you would go when you go to Starbucks, or Chick-fil-A. Like, how may I serve you? Because that's what we're here to basically do. Nobody wants to come into this building. So you have to make sure that there's a certain, folks feel a certain way when they leave and they know they can come here for anything. I mean, I can attest to this, that since this website has been up, we have had plenty of folks fill out, they want to become a part of the engagement team. They have a complaint about the officer. They have accommodation. They want to tell us how great an officer, did when they interacted. So this is working. We just want to make sure that the community know that it's there. Okay, and I had a question in the chat, and the question was, can the Metro's involvement with CIT and what plans be in place to improve police response to domestic violence calls that involve individuals with mental health disorders? So we've all been trained, and the training will continue on crisis intervention. Chief vision doesn't involve us using our weapons in any situation. We all know the difference from a knife, actual taser in the gun. Crisis intervention, that's our number one priority. We want to, sanctity of life is one of the is the top priority in our critical incident decision model. When you go out to a call, officers are trained to, We create space, distance, and we talk. We use de-escalation techniques to, calm the situation and resolve it without having to use our firearms. Rashid, did I answer your question? Or are there any other questions in the chat box, Ms. Sheila? Ms. Sheila, you're on mute.
Rashid did thank you. He said, yep, you did answer him. Okay. I don't see any other questions regarding CCPD. Nope, not in chat.
Thanks, Ms. Sheila, for having us on. This was awesome. I had notes. This was absolutely amazing. I enjoyed each presenter. I appreciate you so much.
And I appreciate all of you. I cannot thank you guys enough. I'm beginning to find, you say you're born into family, and then sometimes family is just given to you. That's the blessing of it all, in my opinion. Like when the Most High brings you people that you can find yourself trusting from the very first moment that you meet them, you already know you guys are in it to do something. You just don't know what it is. And, for everyone that I've had on here tonight and everyone that joined us, I'm just going to scroll through. Tia Rogers has been with us all night. Rashid's been with us all night. Dawn Lewis has been with us. Sergeant Kevin Wilkes has been with us. Miss Ollie has joined us. It was some people that jumped off because, people had other things to do, I'm sure. But this is a recorded meeting. So that way, we won't lose this. But, these are the people that are interested in what we're doing. And more people will be more interested. And I needed really the world to see this video because there was so much put into it for everyone that participated in that video. It showed my whole entire life of watching racism forever, like since I was a child, with the possibility of just this. It's like a kaleidoscope of light that's coming in now. It's just all these little different things that's coming in, but they're letting me know there is hope. That's what it's saying. It's not going to stay this way. I've said this to Captain Coley. I've said this to Chief Rodriguez, Chief Wasaki. I even said this to Thompson. I said, I'm not a police fan. Never had been. Didn't know if I was ever going to be. But it changed. And it's not because of the fact that it's not a political involvement. It's not any of those things. It's the fact that when you see people trying to do their best, you've got to help them do their best. You can't just sit around and expect these things to just change because you have to be part of the change. If you can't be part of the change and be part of the solution, but do not add to the problem, it's not going to make it work any better for us. We have to learn how to go forward, doing better, being stronger, being more vocal without being vulgar. We don't have to do that. All we have to do is be able to talk to one another. Look, I'll put it to y'all real easy. Cannabis is now legal. Hemp is now legal. Go to the store, go somewhere and get yourself some CBD. Calm yourself down. So when you talk to people, you will be a better person when you talk to people. Everything won't be all over the place. You will be fine. I promise you that. No side effects, no, I'm so high, I don't know what I'm doing. None of that happens. You'll be fine. I'm living proof. So when you talk to the police officers, remember, when that uniform comes off, they are human beings. They've got families and jobs, and they've got bills, and they've got problems, and then they got you for whatever you need them for at that moment. You could be in the street, just fell down. They're going to stop and help you. Okay, short story. So on one of the days, last week sometime, Chief and Captain come to Parkside. And we're walking the streets of Parkside. We go over to the mosque, and they're having their last day of Ramadan, and they've got the gifts and everything out there for the children, and it's beautiful. Okay, that arrangement was made because Captain Coley and other people made it happen. But we don't have to go there. That wasn't the whole issue. We're just walking Parkside, talking to people, drinking in front of their house, doing all kinds of stuff. We're not arresting anybody and saying, oh, you're breaking laws and all of this. I get a text message. My girlfriend, she lives on Langham Avenue. She texts me, I fell and I can't get up. Now, mind you, she had a stroke last year. So I tell Chief and I tell Captain, I got to go around the corner. Here I come in the door with the chief of police and a captain to rescue my friend. You tell me how many times this happens in a week, a day, a month, a second. It don't. You got the chief of police right there. Like the whole world could have stopped right then and there. Everybody would have showed up. All he had to do was make one phone call. Everybody's showing up. Captain had already asked me, did I want an EMT? And I was like, no, because she's going to kill me if I have the EMTs come. There's enough that I got y'all coming. So these are the things that we can do. These are the things that are there. These are the reels that are in our life. We've got things, we've got ideas that we can do businesses. COVID gave us a lot of time to just calm down and just look at ourselves and say, you know what? This whole racism thing needs to stop. We need to stop being the people that we are. We need to stop being ignorant because we're ignorant. We don't need to be that way. We need to be intelligent. We need to show the industrializations that we have inside of us. We need to be the people that our people died for us to be. So where racism is concerned, it starts with us. We are number one on the list. Blacks, browns, and all of the mixtures that go along with it. We have to stop the violence. We have to stop the killing. We have to stop the abuse. We have to stop domestic violence. We have to stop abusing dogs. We have to stop all of that because we're better than that. And respect the people that have the information. Respect the business people, respect the police department, respect the elected officials, respect the educators, the ones that are fighting for the education, respect the environmentalists, respect, as the Jamaicans would say. Just respect. It's not hard. It's not hard. It's a choice. It's a real choice. All we have to do is just do it. I have one thing I got to actually read to you. I have to read it from where it is. So if you see me looking up, I'm reading it from where it is. It says, focus on the hard times ahead with thoughts of those who came before you. Focus on the mission ahead with thoughts of your role as a leader in your community. Focus on the obligations of your family with thoughts of their needs first and your personal needs last. Focus on the future of your people, our people, with thoughts of your course of action to make their dreams come true by any means necessary. Yes, you can become the change. This is what I have to see every day because I put it up there myself. And this is the way I have to walk in my life because this is our mission, is to become the change. So I thank everybody that was on tonight. I thank our guests. I appreciate you so much. I look forward to all of whatever's coming in the future. We will all be communicating with one another. Everybody's going to have something to say about something because we're a network now, so we can share all of this information. There is no lockdown. We're in transparent mode right now. See me, see through. That's the way we're working now. So whenever we have new information, the cannabis business is about to explode. Michelle and I are on it. We're not playing. This is not a game to be played with. We are on it. CCPD has their position as where they're going to be. It's legal, and they're leaving you where you're legal. When you become illegal, they will let you know. Don't get it twisted. So at the very end of it all, I just want to thank everybody for being here. Like I said, if you want to reach out to us at pbcip.org, you can go through the website, or you can call on 856-964-0440. There are various extensions there from the CEO, Bridget Pfeiffer, all the way down to whoever the last person is on the totem pole. But the bottom line is reach out to each other. How did they say it? Be honest to each other. Be excellent to one another. That's the one. Be excellent to one another. because that excellency is within us. And it doesn't take much to share. So thank you all. I'm glad everybody survived the storm. And I came through and just kept going. But thank you all for being here. And we look forward to whatever we're going to do next month. I have no idea. It'll be my last community meeting in June until September. So you won't see me for a few months, but we'll still be in communication one way or the other. So everybody have a good night. Captain Kohler, you get some sleep, okay? Because you get some rest, okay? Is he an officer? Is Omar an officer?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am. Okay.
I am. I'm on the chief's executive staff, so I
Well,
am in compliance and transparency.
Chief Executive Officer Omar, thank you so very much for getting us through and showing us this beautiful website and that video, which I'm in love with, and I want my own copy.
Yep.
So so I want to just say, you guys go in peace. The holidays are coming. Be safe. If you haven't gotten vaccinated, keep your mask on, stay your distance. Okay, wash your hands, do what you did all last year because you're still here. If you did get vaccinated and you're going into tight spaces, put your mask on, stay your distance, wash your hands because it ain't over. It's not even close to being over. Okay, so everybody be safe, be healthy, be happy, stay peaceful, be blessed. God bless you all. Good night.
See you.